Hello and welcome to PGurus channel. I'm Sree Iyer, your host, and this is PGurus Prime Time. And we have a new guest today, the national spokesperson of the Bharatiya Janata Party, and he's also an assistant professor of law in Patna University, Sri Guru Prakash ji. Guru Prakash ji, namaskar and welcome to PGurus channel.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Grateful to be here with you, sir.
So, Guru Prakash ji, you represent the new incoming set of young, lucid spokespersons of the Bharatiya Janata Party, and it's always a pleasure to have you here, sir. Many of our viewers perhaps have not really seen you much because you're still, making your mark in various TV channels. What I request you to do before we start our hangout today is to talk a little bit about yourself. Where did you start your beginnings? What sparked the interest for you to join the BJP and so on? And then we'll start our regular hangout about the Bihar elections and beyond.
Certainly. At the outset, let me be very clear that it's a matter of complete honor for me to be here with you. And I've been a follower of PGurus for quite some time. And the sort of conversations that you have on cultural and the civilizational issues, that is something which is very close to my heart. And as someone who started with a background in Akhil Bharatiya Vidyarthi Parishad and certain ideological and intellectual movement of the non-left, especially in the space of the social justice, which traditionally, wrongfully though, has been captured by people from the other side. It's very important to have an informed perspective, an informed conversation on the sort of fault lines that have developed over the course of the last centuries and on which our culture and our civilization is often attacked in the name of gender, in the name of caste. So, as you said, that I'm live for this from Patna, and we just concluded one of the very important festivals in East India. It's the Chhat Puja, which is essentially worshipping the god of sun. So, like we say in Hindi, that Suraj ko praman ki zarurat nahi hai. We don't need any certificate that there is a god and the existence, the occurrence of sun needs to be celebrated. So, from this part of the country, from this part of the world, we worship the sun, and it is extremely significant because we worship both the setting sun and the rising sun as well. So today was the ultimate day of Chhat Puja, and obviously it's in the family. My father has been doing Chhat Puja for the last 3 decades. It's extremely crucial that how scientific, logical, and rational our civilizational celebrations have been, that of getting the institution of family together, that if there are any differences of opinion, if there are any difficult conversations that probably would have would might drove us apart. So it's time to get together, slow down, get a perspective on such issues. So I essentially come from Patna. I belong to Patna, and Patna again is very rich historically, as you would know, as the seat of the capital of one of the largest, one of the most vast empire recorded ever in the history of humankind, the Magad Empire. It's the land where democracy was not only envisioned but also executed 3,000 years ago. Vaishali. It's the land where Gautam Buddha attained enlightenment. It's the land where Vardhaman Mahavir, the founder of Jainism, was born. And finally, he breathed his last also on this soil. It's a land where Kautilya, the Chanakya, the author of Arthashastra, proved a point that in a democracy or in a people-led system, it's very crucial that even though you are not a son or a daughter of a king, if you have the capacity or the skill required, then you can still be a ruler, or in our parlance, you would get an opportunity to serve the people. So, as someone from Patna, as someone we just concluded the Chhat festivities, and obviously the most important elections on which we are going to have a conversation, the Bihar elections, the first amidst the COVID pandemic, and regardless of that, the voting percentage that has come really encouraging. So I look forward to this conversation with you, sir.
Thank you so much. And Guru Prakash, I have a very good friend from Bihar, and we worked together for several years, and we would talk about various things. And one of the things we would talk about was festivals, and which is the most important festival in the year for you, and so on. And I said, being from the south, I said, Diwali is above everything else, this is the one thing that we all very very fond of. And he gave me a very interesting answer. He said, more than Diwali, it is the Chhat that we celebrate. And I was like, what is this? So he explained to me, like you did just now for our viewers. And I said, I didn't know that. And these are all some of the things where India shows how plural it is, how inclusive it is. Because when he said that it is not Diwali, then I immediately jumped and said, oh, maybe it is Holi. He said, no, not even Holi. So you have this amazing cultural mix that we see in India, and for some reason our narrative about ourselves has been kind of work in progress. And I'm hoping that with enlightening conversations such as this one, that we can take out all the darkness, the grayness, and let the sun shine through. So with those starting words, I'd like to start with this question: the recently concluded Bihar elections. Guru Prakash ji, was it up to BJP's expectations? I mean, you don't have much to complain about, by the way. 66% hit rate is extremely good. I mean, 50% you cross, that is enough. If BJP had, stood by itself, you would have been enough to form the government. So are you, as a party, satisfied with the results of the Bihar elections?
Oh, certainly. That's a very interesting question. And as a party worker, you obviously expect to have a strike rate that is phenomenal. And in fact, we have achieved that strike rate in the past. If you look at the data from 2010 Assembly election, which was again a very crucial election, the BJP contested on 105 odd seats and we won 91 seats. So it was the track record of governance, especially clean governance, phenomenal development in terms of law and order, infrastructure, connectivity, rural employment, empowerment of women, and so on and so forth. So that's very critical. And this election, obviously, we were hoping to have a better strike rate than this one. But obviously, like you said, we have no reason to be disappointed. But as a political person, as a party karyakarta, obviously you would feel that a little bit more like those anxious moments as a student you get when your results are getting out, that thoda or marginally acha ho jata. So that pain is still in my heart. But obviously, considering the outcome, considering the circumstances we went into the election with, and obviously the COVID pandemic, and Bihar obviously being the sort of victim because of historical reasons that people have migrated from Bihar to the far east, to the far west, and especially the first Girmitia, you would know, the word Girmitia originated from the word agreement. So there were agreements that people, in terms of the migrant labor, would go to parts of Mauritius, Fiji, Trinidad, Tobago, like the West Indies, and so on and so forth. So the pictures were really telling in the month of April that came out, and there was a sustained negative campaign against obviously the leadership, against the government. But regardless of that, I must tell you, sir, that the leadership of the country, under the able supervision of Honorable Prime Minister Narendra Modi, he envisioned the implications and imposed a lockdown mindful of the size and magnitude of the country like India. So there were obviously things that could have been controlled better, but obviously considering everything, the crisis was managed well on the part of the government. And one thing that was a very learning experience for me, that people, especially the youngsters, came out in large numbers to support people. Like you would have seen photographs of youngsters with water, with glucose, with jaggery, with food. And this is something which is possible only in a civilizational state like India, where Obviously, like Dr. Baba Sahib Ambedkar said, that democracy probably is a topsoil on a society which is far more divided on the lines of caste. But as I said, it was a very learning experience that this election, amidst the COVID, it was a challenge for Election Commission of India as well, which obviously is an independent constitutional body, and carrying out election during such time with such a huge population. So it was 12 crore 10 years ago. So we have a census exercise that happens every 10 years. So the population of Bihar was 12 crore in 2011. So obviously, with that sort of a size, and you have to keep on encouraging the people to come out to vote, it was a difficult election. But kudos to the Election Commission of India, kudos to the people of Bihar, kudos to the women of Bihar, and people from extremely backward classes, people from Dalit community, and so on, who sort of established our faith in democracy. There were obviously voices among the opposition who raised question, but that is a part and parcel when you lose, yeah, like the taste of sour grapes and the hubris of the defeated, as they say. So it was a learning experience for me as a party man, because I've been watching the elections closely as an observer, as a student of politics. But obviously, this election, sir, was important on multiple levels. Bihar, as you know, is a caste-ridden society, and regional family-based political parties who have survived in the name of manipulating the social fault lines, even they were forced to talk about jobs, to talk about issues that actually concerns the citizen of Bihar, public health, infrastructure, connectivity, status of women, law and order. You would have seen the leader of the Rashtriya Janata Dal also coming out and making a promise of 10 lakh jobs. And for this, the credit was unfortunately undeservedly given to him. But the credit for this goes to the politics of performance that has been institutionalized by the Honorable Prime Minister in the last 6 years, if you would see. But the politics of performance, it's not the politics of convenience that was established by the Congress party, that if CBI is convenient to you, you would treat it as a holy cow, you would not raise question on them. If Supreme Court is convenient to you, you would not raise question on them. So this time it was a war of narratives in a sense. And this politics could well be bring a tectonic shift in the politics of heartland at multiple levels, that people have now actually started talking about jobs and issues that matter to people. So at every level, it was a very learning experience for me, and I look forward to sharing the experience. I have had a couple of editorials published on this election as well, on how developmental narrative sort of guided the electoral discourse and the political talking points this election.
You know, you have in your answer guided me to my next question, and I'm just looking at it purely as an observer. The performance of the Rashtriya Janata Dal has been nothing but impressive because, in my opinion, Tejasvi Yadav has stepped outside from under the shade of his illustrious father, Lalu Prasad Yadav. Credit where credit is due. They did not get to make the ministry, but the performance, being the single largest party, even if it is just by one seat, speaks of something. And how do you think RJD ran their campaign? What are your thoughts? I mean, I just want you to be cognizant of a worthy competitor here.
Undoubtedly, undoubtedly, and Justin obviously did one thing right, that when the election campaign started, he made some powerful attempt to disown the legacy of his father. And that is something which is very telling. On the posters of RJD, the images of Lalu Prasad Yadav and Rabri Yadav were gone. So it was, in a sense, an effort to consolidate on the legacy, at the same time be mindful of the negative implications that it might bring. Because we still remember, as someone who was born and brought up in the state, I have seen it very closely, the sort of kidnapping, extortion, and I'm not saying it as for the sake of saying it or for the sake of politics. I've actually seen it very closely, like my friends getting threatening call and extortion calls. So people still remember. But in a limited way, the conversation did not entirely focus on the Jungle Raj. But like I said in my previous question as well, the conversations pivoted on positive and a constructive political discourse, Obviously, like in your observation, you said that Tejasvi Yadav might have stepped out of his father's shadow, but for a political party that is based on one family, no particular ideology, no robust organization, no thought process as such, it would still take a lot of time to emerge from his father's shadow, because by and large, his utterances in public rallies were attacking on a certain segment of society and giving the cushion to a certain segment of society. So it's still a long way ahead for him. He still has a good 2, 3 decades for him to prove himself in the public life. But as far as this election is concerned, see, there is always, and you would agree with me, there is always a fatigue factor that comes in. So for the
The
last 15
anti-incumbency, yeah.
yeah, for the last 15 years, you had one chief minister. So it's very natural that it comes in. But regardless of that, we have had some fundamental legislative advances, like the liquor prohibition for that matter. Liquor prohibition, I would not like to go on the revenue implications of it, but at the societal level, it has immensely benefited the women folks. And that was evident in the results that have come out. So, what used to happen, sir, that when liquor was in operation, when liquor was available, so in the rural areas, we were getting a lot of complaints that women are getting bashed by their husband and their sort of domestic violence cases. But on the contrary, there were also questions raised in this present election campaign as well that you see, liquor is still available. What is your answer to it? So we responded that we have laws to prohibit murder as well. We have laws to prohibit dacoity as well. We have laws to prohibit rape and extortion as well. But still, that is happening. We are nowhere close to ideal society as of now. It is a long journey, it is a long path, but that, along with other welfare measures, like Bihar became the first state in 2006 to provide affirmative action and reservation for women in the local self government. And that is again, which is very transformative. In the panchayat level, you have women, seats reserved for them 50%. So how do you actually empower a woman? You do not empower her by doling out goods or doling out welfare schemes by coming out on populist schemes, but you actually empower them when you put them in a position of decision making, at critical decision making. So that was achieved in 2006 itself, and a number of measures, the Poshak scheme, the Ujjwala scheme, especially the schemes in terms of COVID, that the Honorable Prime Minister and the central government ensured that under the Jan Dhan account, 2.5 crores account of women were opened. And there was sustained supply of 1500 rupees per month. There was sustained supply of free ration till Chhat. So that is something which is actually very encouraging for a young politician like me, for a young political activist like me, that now the politics is going to be on issues, on real issues, on constructive and positive dialogue. So that has been a huge takeaway, a very important takeaway from this election, sir.
Thank you for that, and I can see that you have a very erudite personality. I'm telling you on your face, I have no problem saying that. And I would also have to mention one little thing here. In February 2019, I was part of a seminar, and there was a fairly good, accomplished set of people on the stage alongside me. One of them was Mr. Tariq Fateh, and he and I got into a bit of a discussion. And I was telling the audience that the Bharatiya Janata Party needs more people, more spokespersons who can come and play on the front foot. And then interesting conversation going on. And then the next day, Rahul Gandhi says that we'll be playing on the front foot. Remember, this is February 2019, leading up to the elections. So now I see that one party heard, both parties heard me. One party said something, the other party heard and did something. So that is very, very pleasing to see. When I have somebody that I can lock horns with ideologically, intellectually, and bring out the thought process, that always provides for an enriching conversation. So thank you once again for taking the trouble of joining our hangout. And if it's okay with you, I'll just go on to my next question.
Please go ahead, sir.
So some say that this result by BJP seems very crafted, in that The after the first phase and the second phase, it looked like BJP was trailing, and miraculously, it seems to have made up lost ground in the third and final phase. What are your observations about how this whole polling went? Is that something like this? I mean, remember that I'm halfway across the world. My perception could be of a very, small set of people whom I may have polled. So, what are your thoughts on this?
Sir, exit polls have this knack of getting unimaginably wrong, and they got it wrong this time as well. When we said the silent voters, so the maximum sample size of the exit polls was if I'm not mistaken, it was 61,000 or 62,000. And like I said, the population of Bihar is 12 crore. The number of votes polled were almost 4.5 crores. So exit polls, if anything, they were not even marginally suggesting the outcome. So the silent voters, the women voters, and the voters from the EBC, extremely backward classes, the voters from the Mahadalit community. So there was a double whammy, if I can suggest. One was obviously the sort of welfare schemes and the sustained development program that has been on operation for the last 15 years. And second, obviously, was the formidable social alliance that was in play. You look at the new BJP, you look at the new alliances that we have created, the new social alliances. We had Jitan Ram Manji, who comes from Manji community, the Musar community, who traditionally have been rat eaters because they have been marginalized. We have Vikashsheel Insan Party, the VIP party, the leader of whom Mukesh Sahni, who is a son of a fisherman. So we had such formidable social alliances, obviously apart from the robust organizational strength of the BJP and the leadership within each and every community that has carefully been done over the course of the last 10-15 years, that how do you cultivate leadership? How do you give representation to the people who have been unrepresented for decades? And I'll be very clear with you because I've been working in the space of Dalit rights as well. And as someone from the community, I have seen how Congress party has systematically institutionalized the politics of patronage, that you patronize them. And this is something which is really offensive. From the politics of patronage, you've come to politics of partnership. You see, in the Congress party, the tallest Dalit leader in the history of the Congress party, Babu Jagjeevan Ram, who went on to become the deputy prime minister of the country, was the defense minister of India when the landmark 1971 war happened. He was not given the credit. The entire credit went to the honorable prime minister of that time. But that is something which is a conversation of another episode. But Congress party has systematically practiced this politics of patronizing the communities that have been marginalized, have been at the subaltern, have been at the fringes. But at the same time, you see another force emerging in the name of BJP, which is consciously cultivating leadership across the communities, across different castes, across region. So that is something which is really telling. So yes, a double whammy. First off, obviously the development and the welfare programs, and second, leadership across the community, leadership across the gender. If you look at the new cabinet, it is very, you would see Tarkishore Prasad ji and Renu Devi ji, a woman from extremely backward class, leading the state. So that is because on December 5th, we will be celebrating the International Day of Dignity. This is just a day before the Punyatithi of Baba Saheb Bhimrao Ambedkar. So on International Day of Dignity, dignity is going to be the cornerstone of the next generation of reforms for the social justice. Social justice 2.0, that is what I say. Social justice should not be dismissed. Social justice is extremely crucial in a country like India, where you would ensure that how there is social diversity at the key decision-making positions. At the level of politics, it obviously has reached to a certain level. Because today, if you see, people leading the Bharatiya Janata Party in different states come from Dalit community. In Tamil Nadu, for that matter, there is a young Dalit man, a dynamic man, who is leading the party in the state. In Himachal Pradesh, in important organization role in Andhra Pradesh and Rajasthan and so on and so forth. The youngest Dalit woman MLA of the country is from the BJP from Gujarat. People from the elected representative, the highest number is from the BJP. There has to be a reason that people from that community is reposing faith in the leadership of Prime Minister. And that is something which has actually inspired me to come into public life as well, sir.
That is very heartening to know because, most of us, it's no fault of anyone. Social media has kind of given everyone to listen to just sound bites. I mean, I wish the youth of India spent half their time listening to the lead up to the Bihar elections and to just this conversation, because what has come out is the amount of careful preparation that goes into whom to put up as a candidate, what to message, how to do it, and so many things. I mean, we all want things done the right way. Especially, I'm saying this to the youngest one. You really need to listen to politics also. The world is not Bollywood. The world is not cricket. The world is not SSR. The world is something beyond all this. And I'm going to come to the case of SSR in just a minute here. We're having a fairly, very engaging conversation here, and we are already 27 minutes into our conversation. Now, I just want to ask you the next question. This is regarding the Paswans. Now, just before he passed away, Ram Vilas Paswan ji said that they are leaving the NDA, at least at the center. And then, unfortunately, he passed away, and then Chirag Paswan took over the mantle. And what we noticed was that he was very deferential towards the Prime Minister. I'm just saying based on what reports I saw on media. Now, how much of Chirag Paswan's party was a factor in cutting the vote bank of the JDU, especially Nitish Kumar? Do you think this was something that was done to cut him to size? I'm not saying that he really in those words, but what I'm trying to say is these are all different strategies that are used in politics. A lot of the river runs deep, if you will. So, what are your thoughts upon what happened with the whole Paswan family, role in these elections?
No. It's a very important question, and obviously we have throughout the election campaign we faced it on multiple occasions, and we vociferously said that NDA in Bihar means four political parties: the BJP, the JDU, the HAM, and VIP. And we were in a very clearly defined terms. We were going under the leadership, proven track record of clean governance, corruption-free governance of Shri Nitish Kumar, and uh, the number was offered to Chirag Paswan ji as well before the election when the seat allocation, the seat distribution was happening. Probably he was not happy. He became over ambitious. You see, Ram Vilas Paswan ji was undoubtedly a tall leader of the community, a tall leader of the country, because he managed to stay relevant for a good 3 decades as a union minister of very important portfolios. And he has contributed. He has done immensely well as well. Yes, sir. You want to come in?
So he earned the sobriquet Mausam Vaigyanik. Please continue.
Yeah. Yes. So he was undoubtedly a tall leader, probably, and our leadership were obviously offered a respectable number of seats to Lok Janashakti Party as well. They became over ambitious, and in a democracy, and especially the nature of our democracy, the nature of our political process is such that you can obviously go and contest and fight it out alone. But we were always mindful of the fact that that is not going to be a defining impact as far as the election results are concerned. Because if you look at it statistically, Lok Janshakti Party in the last 20 years have contested 4 assembly elections. 2 elections in 2005 back to back, 2010 and 2015. Of these 4 elections, they have fought on almost 498 assembly segments. They have won on merely 44 seats in the course of the last 20 years. So that is the success rate of hardly 9%. So we were always aware of the fact, but regardless of that, the leadership offered a respectable number of seats. And once he chose to break the alliance, we were okay with that decision as well. And Honorable Prime Minister himself, when he campaigned in Bihar, he made it sufficiently clear that NDA in Bihar means Bharatiya Janata Party, Janata Dal United, Hindustan Awam Morcha, and Vikashsheel Insan Party. And we are going under the leadership of Shri Nitish Kumar. There were no second thoughts on it. But he had his own ambition, he had his own ideas. So I think I would rest my case as far as this question is concerned here.
Thank you for that clarification. And again, let's go back and look at the multi-phase elections here. And I'm just talking about how This is just an observation. You could correct me if it is incorrect. There is a feeling that after the first phase of polls in Bihar, that the leadership in BJP and in the Rashtriya Swayamsevak Sangh realized that they needed to fine tune the strategy a little bit. They needed to change. They made the campaigning more aggressive in the second and the third phases. And perhaps that got them across the finish line, because the victory is just, with all the four together, you have a bare majority. I mean, just a little bit above the line. So there is a perception that that is what happened. Is that true? And to what extent is something like this, where you have to change strategies after a certain phase? Nothing wrong in that. All I'm trying to read into and educate our youth is that politics is not something that where you can take a stand and hope to win on that. There's a lot of groundwork that goes with it. So what are your views on that?
No, that's actually a very interesting question. But I'll be very clear with you that when you say that we probably did some more aggressive campaigning after the first phase, I don't find it appropriate. I don't find it correct, because see, the number of rallies of Honorable Prime Minister was clear since the elections were announced. Like, he was going to address 12 rallies. It was not increased. It was not decreased. We went ahead with that. And in an election in a state like Bihar, there are obviously certain traditional areas where a certain political party is stronger than the other political party. So you're always mindful of the fact. There are some rural pockets like the bordering areas of Uttar Pradesh, the bordering areas of Jharkhand, the bordering areas of West Bengal, where we have traditionally been strong, and there are areas we traditionally need to work more. So the first or the conversation around the first phase was misguided by saying that we did some aggressive campaigning. But as a student of politics, as someone who is a Karyakarta of BJP, I would say that we did not change that strategy. We did not do some aggressive campaigning. But in every election you see every election, the ideas are such, the Karyakartas are such, the vision, mission, action, and strategy are such that we give our heart. We give our 24/7. So I myself, I could not visit the 243 assembly segment, but I visited good 50, 60 assembly segments. I know of people who traveled on road by cars, and they covered 200 assembly segments. There were 20 star campaigners. There were also questions raised that you see, look at the number of crowd they're coming to Tejasvi Yadav. So the one responsible response to it was that we had 20 star campaigners, 20 different rallies happening almost every day in the day of campaign, and they had only one. So obviously they were getting some traction, they were getting the camera. But our leadership, sir, our vision, mission, strategy, and our team spirit was such that since day one, since the elections were announced, we are a different set of people taking care of the manifesto. We're a different set of people taking care of our video vans. We're a different set of people who are working on the report card as well. And that is something which is again very interesting, that the politics of report card. What have you done in the last 15 years? Is a question which must be asked in a democracy like ours. That in terms of infrastructure, how many, the length of roads. And I'll be very clear with you that in 2005, the Bihar that we inherited, the fiscal deficit was much higher than what it is today. The rural connectivity was much lower from what it is today. The coverage of electricity, electrification was only 20% odd in 2005. It's now almost 100%. The availability of potable water is almost more than 90% today. So these are some of the very important social economic indicators, obviously apart from these social alliances which we crafted before the election. So this is how our party goes into the campaign with invisible karyakartas, invisible leaders who just disappears in the crowd and spreads the message of the Honorable Prime Minister, of the leadership of the party, of the Honorable Chief Minister, and the policies and the program, or what we intend to do. So, very interesting slogan we came out this time, that Jan Jan Ki Pukar, Atmanirbhar Bihar. Like, how do you make Bihar self-reliant? Because there is so much scope in tourism, like I said, in religious tourism. Sita was born here. So Sita was born here, Ubhay Bharti. So when Adi Shankaracharya was on the tour of the country, he encounters Mandan Mishra, and then there was a Shastra between Mandan Mishra's wife Ubhay Bharti, and he conceded a defeat. And so It's a land of women renaissance, it's a land of democracy, it's a land of registry, it's a land of the world's oldest university as well. Your Oxford and Cambridge came much after the Nalanda University. Nalanda University was 4th century. It was unfortunately vandalized by Bakhtiyar Khilji. But in 2008, and I would take just 10 seconds to tell you that in 2008 East Asia Summit, uh, it was envisioned that Nalanda International University would be re-established. And today I'm happy to tell you that students from more than 25 Southeast Asian nations are studying in a rural area of Bihar, Rajgir, which used to be the capital of Magadh dynasty, and where we have an amazing infrastructure of Nalanda International University. So these are some of the remarkable achievements that have been achieved in the last 15 years, and what we intend to do in the next 5 years. We went to the public and we spoke about it.
A couple of observations from my side, having been to Bihar, the year was 1985, and that time Bihar was united. And
I was not.
we flew down to, I think, Ranchi. And then those days, Indian Airlines was the only flight available. Option was the only to fly Indian Airlines. It's a multi-hopper. Started from Delhi, Lucknow, Patna, then Ranchi, and then it was going to Kolkata after that. Now we get down in Ranchi first thing in the morning, like 7:38. It's kind of nice and pleasant, and then we had to go to BIT, Birla Institute of Technology in Ranchi. It is a little bit of a distance, I think about 40 kilometers or something like that. And the guy who I was traveling with, I was a neophyte. I just started in my job, but I happened to know what the problem was in the BIT lab, and I was the product specialist, and I was supposed to go there. And the guy I was going with, he said, whatever things you want to do, basic stuff, do it now, because between here and BIT, you're not going to get much help. The roads were potholed. I mean, we had a real all shakedown of the bone by the time we reached BIT Ranchi. Then it was like a 4-hour, 5-hour work that, it was full. I mean, I had my hands complete. By the time evening came, looked up and it was evening and we had just finished, and we came back to Ranchi and we, settled down for the night because the flight was the next day, same multi-hopper going back to Delhi, and no power. This is Ranchi, and it was a fairly good hotel, but there's no power, no, generator, no nothing. And it was a miserable night. I mean, I'm not used to it. If you're used to it, perhaps you can, weather it through. So from that point forward, I know, and my friend from Bihar, we used to have these conversations right through 2000s and so on. And one important observation that this friend of mine made, he said, Nitish Kumar is going to be chief minister for life. And how prescient he is proving out to be, because the lead changed to a different combination. He was still the chief minister. Then he finds that this is not the way I need to take the future of Bihar. He changes course again, and he's back, and he's still the chief minister. And these are some of the things that I cherish, because who would have thought? I mean, this conversation about who's going to be the next chief minister for the next 20 years took place in 2002. Almost 20 years ago. So it's incredible that Bihar has changed for the better, and I really wish and hope that Bihar finds a prosperity that is there within, and Nalanda University certainly is a good step in the right direction. Now let's take a look at the MGB. Congress again is still dependent on the family to get them the votes. And unfortunately for them now, even inside their own party, they are beginning to think that this is beginning to be a dead weight which is pulling the party down. Because you are doing extensive campaigning, was Congress helping the Gathbandhan or was it hindering the Gathbandhan? What was your thoughts?
Now that is something, for that you have to ask the people of MGB. But you see, after 1995, Congress has been a very marginal force as far as Bihar is concerned. Like, I still remember on the day of exit polls, I was having a debate on a television, and the Congress spokesperson said that we have been hopeful. So I retorted saying that you guys have been hopeful in Bihar since 1995. So it's a long wait for you guys. You would still take some time. You would be surprised to know that like every political party has polling agent on the day of polling on the polling booths. Like in the city of Patna, where my polling booth was there was not a single active polling agent of the Congress party. So this is the city of Patna, where they have such a vast campus as their party office. And it was the son of Shatrughan Sinha who was contesting. Love Sinha was contesting. So this culture of Congress party of parachuting candidates, this culture of Congress party that you have institutionalized that it's going to be the family, it's going to be the dynasty, that is the repository of the soul knowledge, that is the repository of political leadership, that is the repository of political will. So that is something which is harming them. There is no semblance of internal democracy in the Congress party. There is no ideological coherence, especially in terms of Gupkar controversy, which is now going on. The JNK units say we are part of Gupkar, the national units say no, we are not part of Gupkar. There is no ideological clarity on whether they support Article 370, they support revocation of Article 370 or not. There are external affairs minister, the former external affairs minister of the Congress party, sir, people like Salman Khurshid, people like Mani Shankar Iyer, people like Shashi Tharoor who have gone on the foreign soil, who have spoken against the democratic ethos of India in Pakistan. People of India are not blind. People of India are very intelligent when it comes to democratic decision making. It's unfolding in front of their own eyes. So they know. Mr. Rahul Gandhi lost his own election from the pocket borough Amethi in the last election. So people now are very conscious. People now are very cognizant of their concerns and the aspirations, and they want a reflection of those aspirations in the political leadership now. When we say, Honorable Prime Minister, he works so much, he set the benchmark so high. So for a person like me, for a youngsters like me who is aspiring for a political career, we have to give that extra effort. You have to work with that passion, that commitment, that dedication, which is extremely crucial for you. You either perform or perish. And that is how it is supposed to be. The concerns of the new India, the concerns of the young India need some reflection in the political discourse of the country as well. And that is something which is very crucial. So Congress party, I think, is in comatose. They need to do some serious self-introspection, need to confront themselves with some dissenting voices, need to ask themselves some difficult questions. Only then there would be a scope of revival. Even now, you see the Augusta West End revelations that have come up. The Indian Express is doing a series of story. The people related to Kamal Nath, their names are coming. So in the coming days, obviously, we would see how the institutional corruption came in operation whenever Congress was in power. So these are some of the reasons that have been behind the failure of the so-called grand old party.
Yes, indeed. There is also, I wanted to touch upon something else. Tomorrow, viewers, we are going to have a hangout with Suhail Seth, where we are going to take apart the statements made by Barack Obama about Rahul Gandhi and the Congress party. And please do tune in tomorrow for prime time at 9 p.m. IST. I just wanted to plug for that because it seemed like a good time to do that. You see, there is a definition for the word insanity. Trying the same thing over and over and expecting a different result. And I'm not saying that that's what the party is thinking, but if you look at the results on the ground, somewhere, when is the Congress party going to realize that whatever strategy they think will work is really not working? Now they have a really open split in their party. Of course, I'm asking the wrong person. You're not in that party. But what I'm asking you, sir, is in the interest of democracy, first of all, this dynastic politics that Congress started, and now you find it permeated to the state levels, whether it is the Yadavs in UP or in Bihar, or the progeny of Mr. M. Karunanidhi in DMK or JDS. See, you have to remember by the way, viewers, we have to remember that the JD was all together as Janata Dal at one point of time. Lalu Yadav, Nitish Kumar, father of Biju Patnaik, and HD Devagowda, they were all one unit, and now everybody has split in different ways. But you see, the template that the family shall inherit the party started from Congress. So in that respect, Tejasvi got a handicap in the sense that he was known as the anointed successor. And at least in comparison with Rahul Gandhi, how do you think his performance has been?
You see, Tejasvi Yadav, like I said, he obviously worked hard and addressed a good amount of rallies in the elections of Bihar. But in a family-based political party, sir, you would have some conflict when it comes to the position of decision making. So his brother was in a constant struggle with him. His sister, elder sister Misa Bharti, is in the Rajya Sabha. So people are mindful of the fact that you would have started in the name of social justice. Like in Hindi, we say that शुरुआत जमात से हुई, बात जात पे रुकी और अंततोगत वो परिवार पे थम गई. So community, caste,
Go
family.
ahead.
You essentially stopped in family. Like and that stands true for many other political leaders as well. That I'll be the national president, my son will be the state president, my other son will be the member of parliament, my daughter will be in the Rajya Sabha, my brother-in-law would be the state general secretary. So this is something which is just preposterous in a democracy or in a people-led system like us. And people are looking at it. But at the same time, sir, I'm also not suggesting that being a son or a daughter of a politician should be a disqualification. Obviously, if you have the passion, if you have the dedication, if you have the commitment, and if you seriously want to pursue politics or public life, then you are most welcome to do it. But you should also have some metal inside you. You should have that fire in the belly to prove, because politics also has fundamentally changed. Obviously, the traditional definition of politics is there, like the famous essay by Weber, Politics as a Vocation. I recommend everyone, although it's a lengthy one, but I recommend everyone to read that essay. That what, like, I always keep asking myself this question: that why am I am in politics? What use I am of some people who are in public? So whenever I ask this question to myself, sir, I get a different answer. I'll be very honest with you. Like, am I here for a particular position? So, one answer that has been a constant is that how you being in public life can be beneficial to other people. Now, this other people umbrella is very wide. So, especially in the COVID era, the number of phone calls that you were getting in terms of requirement of oxygen cylinder, in terms of hospital bed, in terms of ration, and so on and so forth, is phenomenal. And once you have that sense of empathy, it's very important that I'm not talking of sympathy, it's empathy. That how do you actually feel the concerns and the challenges that the other person is facing? And for someone in politics, or for someone who wants to come into politics in any part of the world, you should keep asking yourself this question. And if the constant answer is that your existence in politics is for the benefit of some other people, then probably you are at the right place. And for Tejasvi Yadav, I see he has that organization, he has that legacy of family, but still, I would say there are a good decades in front of him for him to prove himself, for him to lead his party. But I have my own reservations, I have my own questions, because in a family ridden system, you would have clashes, you would have conflict, and it completely depends on him, on how he emerges out of it.
Thank you for that wonderful explanation. I mean, you really hit the nail on the head, because viewers, just go back and look at every regional party and you apply what Guru Prakash ji just observed about how these familial relationships are always ending up occupying the important posts, whether it is in Rajya Sabha or Lok Sabha or in the state that they are in. And this is not a recipe for good thing, it is a recipe for disaster, which is why I come back to the original thing that for a healthy democracy, you got to have two parties, and that Congress needs to reinvent itself. Wherever it happens, we don't know. Because my next question is a rejoinder to all of us that when you don't have a good opposition, that something that is perhaps not a good trend starts emerging. I'm talking about the success of my good friend was Asaduddin Owaisi. He's also from Hyderabad. I am from Hyderabad. In fact, I studied in old Hyderabad. I probably have, played a cricket match or two with him. I don't know. I don't remember. But, the rise of AIMIM winning 5 seats in Bihar. What did BJP do wrong, or your alliance do wrong there? Can you kind of capture for us? Is this a one-off event, or is it only going to grow moving forward?
Oh, that's a very interesting question, sir. And in fact, as a student of politics, I'm willing to undertake a study to examine the rise of AIMIM, and also the rise of ML, the CPI ML in Bihar, because they have also won considerably. And as an active democracy, it's obviously important. But I would like to draw your attention towards the data from 2019. Out of 40 parliamentary seats, we won 39. The Congress won one in Kishanganj, the Simanchal, where Owaisi's party have won. But one important takeaway from the victory of AIMIM is that the sort of treatment that were meted out to the minority community by the traditional political parties like the RJD, who claim to be the sole custodian of their interest. So the minorities have categorically stated that we are not your bonded labor. It comes out really well in Hindi that वो बंधुआ नहीं रह गए. They are no more the bandhua of these so-called political parties who have been indulging in minority appeasement and flaring up communal sentiment, because they have not done anything fundamental. When I say that Ujjwala supplied with regardless of people looking at their religion, caste, gender, and so on. So when it comes to the supply of rations, supply of gas cylinders, supply of the Jam Trinity, the Jan Dhan, Aadhaar and Mudra. So the beneficiaries come from across the community, across the region, across the religion. So when our Honorable Prime Minister says Antyodaya, Antyodaya has to be the commitment. Antyodaya means the concerns of the person who is the last man standing in the queue. The last man in the line should be in the center of our policy imagination. Whenever you make any policy, like obviously it's the famously Gandhi talisman, but in our case it's the Antyodaya, the concerns, the challenges and the aspirations of the last man has to be the focus whenever you are planning or implementing any policy. So as far as OIC's rise is concerned, I certainly agree with you that it's a matter of scholarship, and people who are interested in the politics of the region would certainly take that. But they have given out one strong message that they are no more the bonded labor of the so-called RJD and the Congress party in Bihar. And that is a very important and remarkable takeaway.
So we are down to our last three questions. The next question is a follow-up to what we just did. Some say that the AIMIM is the B team of the BJP, and this was put in place specifically to cut into the MGB votes, that grip that they had on the Muslims. What do you have to say for that, sir?
See, we have answered that question sufficiently in the past as well. But you look at the utterances of the state leadership of AIMIM, when there was a marginal difference between the ND and MGB, they made it categorically clear that it is going to be the MGB. If the MGB is able to form the government with our help, we are ready to offer our help. So there is no question arising that they are our B team. We are ideologically opposite. Like, there is no confluence of thought. There is no confluence of ideas. There is no question of us having any sort of arrangement or understanding with that political party, which is so parochial in outlook. And in any state, you see in Maharashtra, in your Hyderabad also, you would have seen that we have been at loggerheads. So there is no question of any sort of understanding with them. There is, it is sufficiently clear that we have two different paths. We are doing two different politics, and I don't see any point of convergence. And they have sufficient, the leadership of that party has also made it clear on multiple occasions.
Well, see, one of the things about Owaisi is he's a pretty erudite person. I mean, you can sit down and talk with him. You can disagree with what his viewpoints are, but he definitely will sit with you and make his point across. And that is important for a politician. And I just wish that he tried to be the leader for the entire India and not for a certain community, because leadership is different. In my opinion, being a politician is very hard because you have to be available to the masses 24/7. The moment your eyes open in the morning, there is a line standing with list of grievances, and you cannot lose your composure till the last person who comes and knocks on your door at 10 p.m. at night has been addressed. So this is not an easy profession. I absolutely, give credit, tip my hat to all those of you who have taken up this profession. The next question for you is, do you think Nitish Kumar might do another palti and join up with RJD should something, unpleasant evolve over the next 4 years or something like that, and we'll see another situation switch in Bihar? Do you see the possibility of that, or is there a very unison in terms of vision for the state?
No, no. First, I would like to take that observation that you made about OIC. Obviously, you see, it is possible only in India. When we say Hindutva, we say Sarve Bhavantu Sukhina, a nation or a civilization that has survived and thrived on this philosophy of Sarve Bhavantu Sukhina, Sarve Sana Nirama. There is always a scope of disagreement. There is a scope of difference of opinion, and we respect that. Dissent is undoubtedly the essence of democracy, and that is why we say that when we say that we are a party with a difference, we have sufficient scope and sufficient place where you can obviously flag your dissent. And as far as Mr. Owaisi is concerned, obviously he is welcome. And in Parliament, we have had our disagreement, we have had our debates. So it's obviously, and it's, but let me be very clear with you, sir. And obviously, you are also privy to this fact that this is only possible in a civilization state like India, that we respect a disagreement. When we say that we let's agree to disagree, that's not just a mere slogan, that's not just a mere rhetoric, but we really have faith in that. So, having said that, I would say like, another question on the trajectory which Mr. Nitish Kumar will take. As far as we are concerned, we are set. We are in a comfortable position. We have our ministry set. We have our leadership set. We have our vision and the action plan set. Like I said, the Jan Jan Ki Pukar Atmanirbhar, we are the promises that we have made in the manifesto of generating 19 lakh opportunities, 19 lakh jobs for the youngsters of Bihar. We are going to focus on that. And how do we make fox nuts, fisheries, maize, we leverage the traditional advantages of Bihar is going to be our focus. And as far as the politics is concerned, I think as far as my limited understanding and awareness goes, we are set for the next 5 years.
I wish you all the best for that. And this is the last question for our hangout. I don't know how time flew. It's almost 58 minutes into our conversation now, and I will not take up much of your time. This is the last question. Mr. Sushil Modi, he was the CM in waiting, and now he finds himself not even in a ministerial berth. Is this a setting aside of this man, or is he going to be promoted perhaps with a post in the center? What are your thoughts, sir?
You see, well, that is a question for the leadership to decide. But as far as my analysis is concerned, the sort of knowledge which our former Deputy Chief Minister Sushil Modi has when it comes to financial planning is second to none. Like his grasp over economic issues, his grasp over the finance, because he has chaired the GST Council and he has been extremely instrumental in implementation of GST. And there were people like he used to chair the committee of the state finance ministers. His observations were so pointed, were so articulate and so robust that even the journalists he used to cover were really impressed by him. So his leadership capacity, his prowess on certain policy issues is amazing. As far as his future role is concerned, I think it's for the political leadership to decide or take a call on that. But you see, a generation shift is something which is very pertinent in a political party like us, and there is no dearth. In politics, always remember that there is no vacancy. And I'll tell you this interesting anecdote. Two interesting things which Rabri Devi said. You look at her political astuteness. She said two things. One thing she said that politics में कोई दुश्मन नहीं होता. And the second thing she said that politics में कभी vacancy नहीं होती. So I think learning from these things from a woman coming from that background, obviously she has seen politics. So in politics in Bihar, in India, we realized that a vacancy, like people said that when when leaders depart, what would happen to the future of the party? But parties survive, leadership survive, politics survive. I think politics, as was said in the famous House of Cards series, that it's immune to changing circumstances. So I think Indian politics is also such that leadership will obviously come. And in a party like BJP, there is always a second generation of leader who are ready at the mandal level, at the district level, at the block level, at the state level, who can take the mantle at any time. And that was clearly shown in case of Maharashtra and South Indian states as well, in a number of northeastern states as well, like the youngest chief minister of Arunachal Pradesh, Mr. Khandu, is there. So there is hundreds of such examples where we can clearly say that there is no dearth of leadership when it comes to the Bharatiya Janata Party. There is a mechanism where you are nurtured, where you are mentored, your organizational commitment, your commitment towards people, your commitment towards the last man in the line is always at test.
Well, Guru Prakash ji, your erudition is so good that we actually have no questions for this debate. And I thank the viewers for watching this. It's been a great success. And I'm hoping that I can introduce more such younger faces of the party to the whole world, because PGurus enjoys a worldwide audience. This is going to be recorded and it is coming to you live on YouTube, Facebook, and Twitter. And trust me, Guru Prakash ji, you're going to hear about this hangout, and I'm hoping that we will have you back again, perhaps in our next series of battles that are going to take place in next year. You have Assam, West Bengal, Tamil Nadu, and perhaps Kerala. I don't know if I also is going to go to the polls at the same time. It's going to be a very diverse set of conditions in each state is going to be different, and I'm really looking forward to having you back on a hangout with us. And thank you once again for taking the time out to meet with us. Namaskar and Jai Hind.
Thank you so much for your time, and obviously Mr. Vijayant, who has been very persistent with his follow-ups and the sort of videos, the sort of discussion that is happening, and the questions that you prepared were really interesting. So I thoroughly enjoyed my conversation with you, sir.
Thank you once again. The feeling is mutual. Namaskar.